I am excited about this conversation. We have a familiar face or voice if you're listening back on the program. We're going to be talking about flawless patches and parallels. To do that, I got my man Kevin Randall to Captain 37. Kevin, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on. Patches are, you know, that I love patches. I think that's you know that is very evident from my posts. So I'm super excited to have this conversation today about flawless patches.
Maybe to like set the stage for this conversation on flawless, I'd love to dig into in this. I get these questions and I'm not even a big patch guy, so it's hard for me to navigate. And you're someone who buys a lot, sells a lot, but just we're in this era right now where we haven't seen game worn stuff in a long time. And I'm just like curious on your end before we get into flawless, like the importance of game worn patches like today, as they exist in this kind of sea of unworn stuff that continues to get produced. We're unsure of what's going to happen with Fanatics. So, like, how do you think about this game worn stuff and these sets from like Flawless? And we talked about Fabric of the Game last week, but like, how do you think about them in terms of importance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of game use stuff, especially like you said, navigating the sea of all player worn. I think we're getting into a situation where people aren't realizing, like, especially the younger generation, that there was awesome patches that were game worn that weren't just off a jersey somebody put on for 3 seconds, or you got a patch from one player, and you had all those stories of people cutting open cards and seeing that it's somebody else's jersey and name, right? Because that's just event worn stuff, right? So I don't know where it's going to go with Fanatics in terms of, are we going to see more game use stuff, whatever. I hope we do. But I mean, I obviously focus on Brady and Peyton, right? They're my two PC guys, right? I don't think Peyton Manning's had a game use card in like 5 or 6 years. And probably the same can be said about Brady. So that just goes to show you that, it's one of two things, right? Either A, it's becoming more difficult to obtain that stuff for the companies, or B, Panini just says we don't give a shit because we're losing everything anyway. So why we bother purchasing a $500,000 game used jersey of Brady to put in cards, right? But I just I've always been drawn to game used stuff. I'm a huge football fan, right? I can't afford or nor display with my house and two young kids, right? My wife would kill me a full game used jersey of a player, right, with the cert, right? So, you look at this stuff. It's a way to bring people closer to the game. You get kind of a piece of history in a card, which if you love cards, obviously having that is awesome, right? So I've always been drawn to it for that. It's just cool stuff. Like being a Peyton Manning fan and PCing him growing up, it kind of sucked because you only had the 2-color Colts patch, right? So when he went to Denver, while it took a piece of my soul as a Raiders fan, it was very cool to be able to get 3-4 color Broncos patches of Peyton, right? Brady always had it, right? Because the Patriots have great colors in the uniform. Some great logo patches and things like that. But I just think that there's so much player worn stuff that's flooding the market now that the younger generation of collectors maybe doesn't even realize that, okay, this stuff is not the stuff you want. You want the game use stuff, right? So I'm hoping that when Fanatics officially does the takeover, that we see more of that stuff, and the value is reflected in it, right? Like, it amazes me. We talk about this in our Colts chat all the time. Jordan brings us up Northwood a lot. What this player worn Peyton Manning stuff out of like Flawless and Eminence and these higher end products, what it's selling for compared to what some of the older game use stuff is selling for. It's crazy. It blows my mind. Like, why would you want it? It's just a new flashy car, right? That's all it is, right? The new flashy product, like, people are drawn to, right? But I think maybe about a year ago, Peyton had I think it was out of Eminence, a player worn shield on card autograph card. Was freaking gorgeous, but it's player worn, right? I think it went for like 6K or something. I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm sitting here looking down at my game used shield out of National Treasures of Peyton on card, and I'm really happy with that purchase I made years ago, because I'm like, how could somebody pay that much money for that? And listen, whatever. I mean, you buy what you want. I'm not going to tell people how to spend their money, right? But at the end of the day, I'd rather have something that's actually worn by the player in the game versus player worn. The one exception I will say is rookie stuff, right? Like RPA stuff for rookies, it's tough because the companies don't have access to that stuff when they're making the product. So I have no issue. Like, I don't hold anything against Patrick Mahomes, National Treasures, RPAs, because they're player worn, right? That it's rookie stuff, right? That's my one area where I'm okay with it. If it's rookie stuff, I'm good. But after that, man, I want game use stuff of these players.
So I think just on the Eminence example that you talked about, shiny objects, I think A lot of it, and this is where I'm curious, like, I think a lot of it maybe comes down to a lack of, like, new people coming into the hobby, interested in game worn stuff or interested in patch stuff. There's kind of a lack of education around, like, what to go after and what not to, especially as the new shiny objects come in.
Yep.
And I'm curious, you have probably more conversations than almost anyone listening to the show about just, like, deals, cards. Is and there's a segment that comes to your showcase who know what they want. They've been in the hobby forever. They know what game use stuff is. But like when you're at the show, how often do people come up and like qualify some of the stuff that they're looking at in your showcase on if it's player worn, game use? Like do those conversations happen or not? Because I'm just trying to get a pulse on like the education around this and if this is a gap that exists or might continue to exist as we move to a new manufacturer.
Yeah, I would say all the time. Especially as you get into more higher end patches. And I think when you get into more higher end patches, it goes beyond just being game used. It goes more to the wording on the back. And this is where we talk about flawless patches. It'll just say game used in the back, but like the older patches. This is why I'm an older patch guy. I love flawless patches, right? But if you look at my PC, I only have probably two or three. They're good ones, right? Which I'll share when we get their flawless, right? But I'm more old school when it comes to patches because I love when it says like, you have received a card officially certified to have been worn by Tom Brady in an official NFL game. Like that's the best type of wording you want. When you get into the super high end patches like NFL shields and things like that, we've had this conversation in my Brady chat. That wording on the back matters so much. So somebody's going to drop 4 or 5 figures on a card. They want to be completely sure that this is legit, right? And the legit conversation we could talk a whole hour about and have a whole episode about because there's so many fake patches and stuff out there. And I get DMs asking me opinions all the time, and I encourage people. I'm not going to say I'm a patch expert, but I got a lot of experience, especially with Brady patches, and what's good and what's not good. So I get DMs all the time asking me. I have no problem having those conversations and answering them because I don't want people to get burnt when they make these purchases. But the bottom line is I think that people. I have a lot of Brady patches in my showcase, right? People want to be assured their game used, and every patch in my showcase is. So I guess locally, especially, I get less questions. People just know at this point, right? But when it comes to the higher end patches, I think the wording on the back really matters to people. Rather than just saying this is a certified game used by Panini, they want to see, hey, it's officially worn by Tom Brady in NFL. And listen, if it's certified game used by Panini, you believe it is, right? Worn by Brady, right? Obviously. I have plenty of patches in my PC that say that, the newer stuff, right? Because the wording's changed over time. But I always kick it old school with my PC, whether it's old school shiny stuff, old school patches, old school inserts, right? And that's why, just because there was more, care and attention to detail in that stuff back in the day versus what it is now, to be completely honest.
So maybe getting into flawless, and maybe this thread that we just talked about. I personally like as not a big patch guy. I really like flawless. I like the look of the cards. I liked the patch windows. There's a consistency I think over the several years, which is nice and comforting. I think one of the hangups that I have just as a maybe not so much Manning, but more Andrew Luck as an Andrew Luck collector. When these cards pop up on eBay or any other platform, I have to be damn sure that I like flip the card over and read the copy of what you just described because that's where there's a lot of inconsistency where it's like 1 year this is game use stuff,
Yeah.
but you jump to the next year it's not. So I don't know, like maybe just talk about that or talk about just like flawless and just the reputation of flawless in your collection, how you think about it at shows, anything you want to start with.
So Flawless has an extremely good reputation at shows in terms of like if you got a flawless patch and like listen, I've had at the national, right? I probably had a showcase with I don't know 50 Brady game use patches in it, right? And flawless one sitting right in the middle, and that's the one I had the most conversations about, right? Besides my NFL shields, right? So super, super great reputation. It's a super high-end product. People know it costs a ton of money. I think the other factor here is, 99% of the hobby can't afford to break it. So when they can get a piece of it without paying the premium to break it, they want to, right? To have that super high end card in your collection, right? Like it's, it's like getting that, if you're an art collector, you find that one piece, the centerpiece of your collection, right? Like that, the flawless patch can be it, right? The only thing I'll say is there's a ton of play worn stuff in flawless. And I think that sometimes people, um, they view the brand over what the actual card is like, oh my God, it's flawless. I got to get it. Right. Well, make sure it's game used, right? It's not just about getting the shiny new toy that's super expensive just to have to fit into the cool kids club, right? I mean, it's making sure that you're getting something you actually want, you're going to be proud of in your PC. That's actually worn by the player in the game, right? Now, once again, rookie stuff aside, I don't judge rookie stuff. It's going to be player worn. There's nothing we can do about that. But first of all, the design on flawless, like you said, is unbelievable. They do a great job with it every year. The jumbo patch windows, the only design I really know to heart is 2014, the inaugural year, because that's where I've kind of hang my hat for my PC. And you look at those cards, first of all, I love the different parallel versions in it. You have like the base silver number to 25, then you have the ruby number to 15, which looks great for Tom Brady. With that ruby foil around the patch window. It's a great, design aesthetics there. Then you got the gold number to 10, right? Then you have the emerald number to 5. So I love the jumbo patch windows. I love the design of the cards. I love the flag. I know this is not going to be a video for people, right? But there's the Peyton Manning. My lighting stinks right now, right? But it's you got the silver around the patch window, and then my Peyton Manning, my Tom Brady, 4-color flawless patch auto. I would love it to have the ruby and be ruby. Once again, you can't really see this here, but anyway, sorry, bad lighting. But because just it matches the red of the Pats window, but beggars can't be choosers with that stuff. I'll settle for my 4-color number to 25. But because I'm more about I want the good chunky patch, multicolor versus the design aesthetics of the color of the card matching the foil and things like that. But I also love in 2014 flawless. You talk about the patch autos, right? Like just looking at it, they designed it perfectly. You got the nice big patch window at the bottom, got the nice flawless cursive writing right above the patch window. And that the brand of the card doesn't interfere with the aesthetics of the card, which I love. And you got a nice big picture of Brady, top left. And then they put the autograph in a perfect spot. It's not being written over any writing or anything, white background, perfect blue signature, Pat's logo below it. Like you can't say enough about the design of this stuff and how well they did it in the first year. And that's really, I mean, I owned other years and but 2014, I could draw out I'm so familiar with the set. I could draw out the aesthetics and the design of the card. It's just, it's so nice how they did it. It's unbelievable. But yeah, back to the reputation thing. Flawless, very, very good reputation. Anytime I have a flawless patch or I'm set up near people who have flawless patches, people are always asking about them. Because it's a high-end brand, right? And people like their high-end stuff.
I want to spend some time on 2014, but before we dig in too deep, I'm curious because something you said I don't want to gloss over, but I think this is important and it's good because you can share from the dealer perspective. You mentioned the different parallel structures. So you've got the parallels, then you've got you can layer on patches and what they look like on top of the parallels. And then I know a lot of these things aren't cracked out, but some of these things are graded too, right? People have them in BGS and PSA slabs. So from a dealer perspective, if someone's coming up to you to buy something, there are instances where maybe a out of 25 Brady could be more valuable than a out of 15 Brady or, down the line. So maybe to anyone who's learning about flawless patches for the first time, talk a little bit through that and just how you think about that, maybe from the dealer perspective.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up. So you think about those 4 parallels in 2014 flawless, right? In terms of price point, I don't see a huge difference in the number to 25, the number to 15. I think that with other players, some people like the base version, right? The numbers, it's like the true rookie conversation with National Treasures, right? Like the true RPAs number to 99 sometimes outsell the random number to 25 ones, right? Because people want the true rookie, the true RPA version. Some people like the original version of the parallel, the number to 25, right? I think for Brady, it's a little more unique because that number to 15 is a ruby, so it kind of fits his uniform. So I think that there might be a higher demand for a Brady number to 15 versus 25, whereas Peyton Manning, I see no difference between a number to 25 and number to 15 patch. And you would think that Well, it's numbered to 15. There's less of them, so it should outsell or be worth more than number to 25. But I think in that situation, people care more so about the patch and what it looks like versus the parallel, if that makes sense. When it comes to that, you see like, all right, so number to 25, number to 15, kind of same ballpark. It really depends on the patch, right? When you get down to the gold number to 10, that's when you're going to see a little price bump. And I don't see a huge difference between the gold number to 10 and the emerald number to 5. I actually think, 7.5 times out of 10 people prefer gold over emerald, period, regardless of the number. And if you think about just a sidebar here, you look at Topps Chrome refractors, right? I would say that 8.5 people out of 10 prefer the gold number to 50 versus the red number to 25 because gold is gold, right? I think it's a pretty similar situation with the parallels, the gold number to 10 versus the emerald number to 5. I don't think, you would think on the surface, well, there's only 5 of these, so it should be worth more than, the one there's 10 of, right? But that's not the case all the time. So I think in that situation, gold is gold. I personally, I would prefer a gold number to 10 versus an emerald number to 5, just because aesthetics, right? I'm a gold guy, obviously. You talk about my love for patches, you see my love for shiny stuff as well on my page, right? That goes way back. But I think that when you're looking at 25 versus 15, it's the patch. So I think with patch collectors, it comes down to more so the patch. Like if my number to 25 has a nice 4-color chunky game used patch, my number to 15 has 3-color. It's a no-brainer to me which one I'd rather have and which one will probably sell for more if they both went up at auction at the same time. So I think it's when it comes to game used patches, and this goes beyond flawless, this goes to any product really. It's more so about the patch versus the parallel and the numbering, if that makes sense.
So yeah, and a lot of what you said translates, and it's how I think. But I think a lot of it too is maybe subjective, where it's just what you like and how it makes you feel. And I think like sometimes, especially on these types of cards, people want to take their rules of like parallel structure and maybe a sales history on a card and bring it up to you maybe when they're trying to like negotiate, and you've got an opinion that's one way, their opinion is the other way. How do you find common ground with a high-end product like this with so many variables on patches with 4 different parallels, and maybe even you could throw in like a grade on top of it, like that matters. But like, how do you find common ground with someone when you're trying to make a deal for one of these things?
Yeah, I mean, it can be difficult, right? Because I mean, obviously, the person on the other side of the table, the buyer, is going to try to, lower the value of the card, whereas you're going to try to stand firm and raise the value of the card, right? So, you'd like to think that if 2 level-headed people are working together, you can come to some common ground. It doesn't always happen, right? Like that's where I get a little frustrated sometimes from a dealer perspective, because it's like, yeah, I'm doing this for my livelihood. This is paying the bills. This is feeding my family, right? But like, there's certain cards I still have to like. I don't care if I sell. I really don't, right? Like I don't have like to have a good show. I don't have to sell a card, right? I always say like, if I have a show where I don't sell a ton of cards, but 10 people take my business card, it's a good show, right? Because networking, what could lead down the line, right? But the amount of people, especially in that younger generation, I guess that's a whole other conversation. But who try to get stuff for their percentage, right? Because they're the quick flippers, right? Just it still cracks me up. But like, I don't care. Like my nice stuff, like if I hold it for a while, I'm one of the most patient people you're ever going to meet when it comes to sports cards, right? Which doesn't work to your advantage when it comes to trying to get a rare piece off me, right? Although you just got a rare piece off me, right? We just did a little deal for that, the Peyton Prism. I think that went pretty smoothly, right? But like it really, I don't try to upcharge the hell out of my stuff, right? Because I'm in the business of moving cards, right? But if there's a nice piece, I'm going to give you my reason and explanation, which to me is logical. It might not make sense to you, or it might not make you happy because it's a higher price than you wanted, right? But at the end of the day, the nice stuff's the nice stuff, and the nice stuff is what's drying up, right? We've been talking a lot in the Peyton chat about the lack of nice Brady pieces in the premier auctions of PWCC, right? Like, you're seeing the same stuff over and over again right now, and that's the stuff that's taken the biggest value hit, right? The nice stuff's the nice stuff, and if you want a rare piece, listen, you can do your research. But at the end of the day, like it's my card, right? So I'm going to tell you, listen, I'm charging X amount because I noticed this comp, I noticed that yeah, this one went low, but there were 4 before that. I just had this conversation with a younger kid the other day about a Chet Holmgren rookie, right? Of all things, right? Well, the last one did 111, yeah, but the last 4 before that were 140, 150, 160, 140. So let's be a little realistic here. It's not a $111 card, right? But so you have those conversations with people. You try to be as nice and respectful as possible, but I'm not trying to sound selfish here. But at the end of the day, it's my card, right? So, there's certain cards that I want to move, and I'm willing to move at below market, whatever. But there's certain stuff that it's so rare. Like, a very simple line that you could use as a dealer is go find another one in the room, right? If there's not, it's supply and demand. It's not another one in the room. You're either coming after it in my end and giving me the value I want, or you're not, right? But only one of us is walking away with the card, and if I'm not getting the value I want, I'm walking away with the card. So. But once again, you try to be as reasonable as possible. The amount of time I spend, which I love, by the way, I talked about this New Year's Eve. My New Year's Eve was spending 9 hours pricing cards and having a couple cocktails right at home, and I loved it, right? It probably also says how old I am now. But regardless, I reprice my stuff. It amazes me the amount of people who set up at shows who don't reprice their stuff before shows. I reprice my stuff before every freaking show, and it's super time consuming. But at the same time, I don't want to have stuff that's massively overpriced in my showcase, right? And I also don't want to have stuff that I have massively underpriced that I don't realize, and I let something go for $100 that was selling for $200, right? It works both ways. But the time and effort that goes into repricing stuff and trying to come up with accurate prices for stuff, I spend a lot of time with it. I take pride in that. And I think that's why people feel comfortable work with me. I'm able to get a bunch of deals done at shows, and but there's certain pieces that they're so rare. And the last comp was January 2022, and I know that was potentially during peak, but has been a sale since. I'm not going to sell it for a discount just because 90% of the market's down. It's a rare piece.
I think one thing is true when people, especially on the football side, think about this set. 2014 comes to mind first because it's the first. How important? This is a topic that is pretty general, but like when it comes to a premium product like Flawless, I think it's important. How important is that first year to you, and especially in with a product like Flawless?
Yeah, very important. I mean, you look at Prism, first year Prism, and what that stuff sells for versus other years, right? You look at Brady's first appearance in Topps Chrome in 2002, and what that black refractor sells for versus another year, right? It goes across the board. It's a general question, but it's generally the same across the board. The first issue of a product is going to be the premium, right? And then for Brady in particular, with 2014 Flawless, it was nice potential 4-color patches you could get, right? Whereas in 2015 it was only 2-color, right? So that's a huge factor. So first year of any set is going to be a premium anyway. But you look at that, it took a few years. I don't know the exact year when he actually had another 4-color patch in Flawless, but you look at 2014 and 2015, the first 2 years. The patches were so much better in 2014, and 2015 is beautiful, right? And I think that I can't confirm this, but I think somebody did some research and said that those 2015 patches, while they were 2-color, they were off a throwback uniform. So that adds something else there. But I think push comes to shove, people want a nice multicolor 3 to 4-color patch, and that you could only find that in 2014 Flawless in the first year. So I think it's a major factor in the how much 2014 sought after when it comes to Brady.
So factors here, we're talking about the more colors on the patch, the better. Obviously, we're probably the lower the serial number, the better, but we've got the gold caveat because gold is king. One thing we didn't, I wasn't planning on talking about, but I know this is something that you care a lot about, is maybe let's talk about the autograph on it. And I think you look at these cards, and some of these cards, like the autographs vary, like in terms of like, this is one that is like pristine to there's a smudge here, or they picked up the pin there. Talk about the autograph factor on these cards, because I think it matters quite a bit.
So I am the biggest autograph snob you're ever going to meet in your life, and I'm open about this, right? And this brings up a horror story, which I'll happily tell. So I'm sure it'll be good listen for people, but it still pains me. But I picked up Brady Flawless patch autos very early. Like the one that I have, one of the ones I had 3 of them. I sold 2 of them to help fund the house, the man cave, where we are now. But one of them I paid $800 for it, right? That's crazy to think about, right? And it was still sealed, got it graded, whatever. But then I actually picked up on blowout cards way back in the day. I picked up the jersey number Ruby BGS 9510. and I think, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 grand or something like that, right? And I was ecstatic to get this thing in, and literally like parking outside the mailbox waiting for the mailman to come, right? Um, get this thing in. I open it up, and like the auto, and this is play on those 2014 flawless autos. This is why I actually don't own a Peyton Manning one, right? So there's a lot of issues with the autos. So even the autos that are graded 10, there's little splotches, there's maybe a little streak, whatever. I'm just an auto snob, right? I've owned a couple Peyton Mannings that I sold because I want a freaking flawless, perfect auto. And there was just a little spot on the auto that bothered me, and I sold it. I'm like, if it's gonna be my PC, I want a perfect auto. And boy, do I wish I wasn't an auto snob, because I wish I still had that card in my collection, right? And I'll tell you what, if I had a chance to get it back, you better believe I would, right? Because it's the Ruby, it's an unbelievable card. The patch was unbelievable on it. It's just I wanted one with an absolute pristine, and I'm unique here, right? With just a perfect auto, right? So I moved it. Obviously, wish I still had it. Actually, somebody I know has it. The card's freaking gorgeous. I'm just an idiot. But the one that I have in my collection, the one I kept, the auto is absolutely flawless and flawless, no pun intended, right? On the card. So that's me. So, but with Peyton Manning's autos in that set is so much worse. There's so many issues, streaks, splotchiness. It was just flawless is a glossy surface on the cards, and it doesn't lend itself to the marker they used or whatever. I'm sure you've seen it, right? You got some. I know you're not a huge patch guy. You got some experience with Peyton Manning, the patch autos. We've seen them in the chat, right? So some people don't care, right? And I would think that you poll 10 people, and probably 9 of them wouldn't care, right? But I'm the one that cares, right? And that's what makes the hobby great and unique, right? People have different things they look out for in terms of stuff that's really at the heart of their PC. But that surface was very tough to sign on. So I am a wicked auto stomp. So I would suggest to people is don't be like me. But I would also suggest that if you're buying a nice patch auto on eBay, just make sure you zoom in on the auto, right? Because there's some that, if you look at it just as you're scrolling through and see all the stuff that's listed, you see it, you wouldn't think twice, but you get it in, there's a bunch of splotches in it. And, some people who aren't auto snobs would notice that stuff and might be turned away and be upset they didn't look closer. So just use that zoom feature on eBay, man, or whatever, auction site you're getting stuff off of, and make sure you take a look at the auto, because they're not all perfect. It's a very tough surface to sign on. But at the end of the day, it's gorgeous stuff. The patches, you can't beat them. And I wish I wasn't as much of an auto snob as I was, because I still have that card in my collection for a very low price point compared to what it's worth now.
One of my takeaways here is, just because it's graded a 10 by the grading company doesn't mean they're all created equally. So
Yeah,
make sure you do your due diligence.
It's just like PSA. I mean, PSA has I think it's a 40-60 centering that they allow allowance for 10s, right? It's probably the same thing with Beckett with grading autos, right? Like if there's 1 or 2 small little things, they're going to give it a 10 because it's nearly perfect, right? So I understand it. It's just, I want a BGS 9511 auto, basically. So,
So what flawless patches, autos do you currently have in your collection right now?
Yeah, so I actually only have 2, which is great. I had, I'm obviously at a different spot right now where, the transition of doing this full time. I always do the PC purge before the national, which I talk about, I'm open about, right? So I had 3 Brady on card flawless patch autos. I moved 2 of those. So I'm left with 1, which I'm keeping long term. It's a nice 4 color, and once again, the lighting's not good now. I can't show you, but it's on my page. It's people know I have it. I get asked about.
Is it out of 25?
It's out of 25. Yep. So number 25 BGS 9510 auto with a perfect 10 auto, 4 color patch, and then I had a couple of the just the patch ones. So the jumbo patch. I had the Emerald number to 5 BGS 95 that I moved to a good friend Dave, DT Sports Cards, and then I had the number to 25. And I said, I got a lot tied up in these. I know they're very desirable cards. I got people who want them. If I didn't have the on-card auto nice jumbo patch, I wouldn't have moved the jumbo patch. But I said, listen, I'm good with this. I'm going to move them both. I did well with them. I got some nice trade pieces back that I wanted. So, it hurt to let go. But at the end of the day, I still got this one, which I'm keeping long-term. And then for Peyton, I've only owned 1 or 2 probably of the patch autos of Peyton, and I was disgusted with both autos, so I moved them right away. And I've had opportunities to pick more up. I almost pulled the trigger once and paid a premium, but there was just a little splotch in the auto that just, You know, it wouldn't have sat right with me, so I didn't get it. But I only have the Peyton, just the patch, the jumbo patch, and that is number 2. It's a nice screenshot. Let's see. That's number to 25, and it's actually kind of a crappy patch. I would love to upgrade this, but it's a 9.5, which obviously these are thicker cards. They're tougher to grade, right? So the pop on the gems are low. But it's a 3-color patch, but it's mostly white, and it's got a little bit of the blue and the orange at the bottom. But that's in my PC. I would love to upgrade that at some point. And listen, you go back to the parallel conversation. I wouldn't care what parallel version it is. As long as it's a nice 4-color or 3-color chunky patch I can upgrade, I'm good with it. So eventually, if I do upgrade that, I'll move this one. But really, it's just 2 flawless patches in the PC right now. And listen, I'm more old school, right? So I think one of the topics on your list that you sent was, what other sets, are out there that you like. And I mean, I'm a big absolute memorabilia guy, like Tools of the Trade. I got some really nice jumbo Brady pieces out of that. You had a whole show on certified fabric of the game. I answered the bat signal right and posted one of those. The Brady with the Patriots cutout window with the 3 colors, gorgeous card. And once the card's, the card's not worth a huge amount of money. I just love the design of the card. I love certified, right? A little nostalgic too, because I broke it a ton back in the day in the card shop. I used to bust boxes of that stuff all the time, right? And I think that you got to give a shout out to 3 of the other top premium brands. First of all, Ultimate, right? So Ultimate Collection, one of the best products ever made. Design, whatever aesthetics. You got the Ultimate, you got the super patches, and then Exquisite back in the day. And while Exquisite, there's not a ton of Brady stuff in there, but I got a nice Peyton Manning Exquisite Maximum patch. It's jumbo piece, 2-color. And then National Treasures, right? We talked about that when we talked about high-end products, right? The Timeline collection and the Colossal collection. The Colossal, the nice jumbo patch pieces, right? And then, back to certified. I mean, both of my shields are mirror black certified parallels, right? First of all, just love mirror black stuff in general. Any mirror stuff from certified is awesome, right? Certified was just such a good product. But there are Flawless is flawless. It's a premium brand. It's very sought after. If I had 5 patches in my showcase, Flawless, Absolute Memorabilia, Certified Fabric of the Game, National Treasures, Exquisite, I'd probably get asked about Flawless first because that's where we are. I'm just an old soul at heart. I love that older stuff. And for me, I love the wording on the back, just to go back to what we talked about earlier. This is certified to have been worn by Tom Brady in an official NFL game. I love that stuff in my super high-end stuff. Listen, Panini, it says game used. I'm good with it. I don't question any of that, right? But, my super high-end pieces that are at the core of my PC, I like the wording, especially my shields, right? Both of my shields, which are super high-end cards, obviously. I have the full equipment logo shield of Brady, and then I have the smaller shield, right? And both on the back have the best possible perfect wording you could ask for. And that means something to me, right? And anybody, because the smallest shield it's in my showcase once in a while. That's known to be available. The bigger one, I'm not moving. But everybody wants to see the back, and everybody wants to see that wording, and I completely understand. It's like a badge of honor when I turn it around and show, hey, see, this is it. This is exactly what you want. Like, there's no question. This is the perfect wording you want in the back of the card. So love me some Flawless, but in terms of my PC, it's more of the sets I listed versus Flawless.
Kevin, it is always fun chatting cards with you. Looking forward to the rest of these playoffs. We'll have to do this again soon.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure.